Dreams are personal. That is the assumption. What you dream is produced by your own mind, your memories, your anxieties, your unconscious processing of the day's events. Two people in the same room will dream differently. Two people in the same building will dream differently. The dream is yours. Japan has 13 locations where this assumption does not hold. 13 locations where researchers, journalists, overnight guests, and casual visitors have reported independently and without prior knowledge of each other's accounts the same dream on the first night of sleeping there. Not similar dreams, not thematically related dreams. The same dream, the same visual content, the same sequence, the same feeling upon waking. In this video, we count down those 13 locations. Stay with me to the end, because location number 1 is a place where the dream has been reported for over 400 years, where the earliest written accounts and the most recent online reports describe the same experience, and where nobody has explained why. So, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us begin. Osorezan, Mount Osore. In Aomori Prefecture is one of Japan's 3 sacred places associated with death. The caldera lake at its center runs blue-gray from sulphur. The landscape is volcanic and barren, and the temple complex at its shore is one of the few places in Japan where itako, blind female mediums, have traditionally conducted rituals to contact the dead. Visitors who stay overnight in the temple accommodation consistently report the same dream. Standing at the edge of the gray lake while a figure on the opposite shore attempts to communicate something that becomes inaudible before it reaches them. In Aokigahara, at one of the forest's designated rest points, visitors who sleep there independently report standing inside the forest facing a specific direction while someone beside them, whose face they cannot see, counts slowly. On Hashima Island, Gonkanjima, the battleship island, urban explorers and overnight visitors to the island have described a consistent first-night dream that centers on the abandoned hospital building. The hospital, once the tallest structure on the island, served the mining community that lived on Hashima until the 1974 evacuation. In the dream, the hospital is operational. The visitor moves through its corridors while the sounds of the working hospital, not voices, but the specific ambient sounds of an occupied medical facility, are audible. At the point where the visitor reaches what would have been the maternity ward, the sounds stop. The dream has been reported by visitors of different nationalities at different times of year who arrived on the island unaware of each other's accounts. The hospital in the dream is always operational. The maternity ward is always where the sounds stop. In the town of Tono in Iwate Prefecture, the location that Kunio Yanagita documented in his 1910 collection of Japanese folk tales, Tono Monogatari, a specific farmhouse that has operated as tourist accommodation for several decades, produces a first-night dream that overnight guests have described consistently, without knowledge of each other's accounts. In the dream, the visitor is inside the farmhouse, but the farmhouse is larger than it is in waking. There are rooms that do not exist in the actual structure. The visitor moves through these extra rooms and finds, in the innermost room that the house extends to, a family gathered around a fire. The family does not acknowledge the visitor. They speak to each other in language that the visitor cannot hear. The visitor stands at the edge of the gathering until waking. The accounts describe the same extended farmhouse, the same inner room, the same unacknowledging family. Yakushima Island in Kagoshima Prefecture contains some of the oldest living trees in Japan. Cedars, whose age is measured in thousands of years, whose trunks have grown to dimensions that make the surrounding forest feel architecturally scaled to something other than human beings. Visitors who sleep within the interior forest at designated camping areas deep within the tree canopy report a consistent first-night dream. In the dream, the forest is moving. Not the trees, not wind and branches, but the forest itself, as an entity, is oriented toward the visitor. The trees that surround the camping area have turned to face the sleeper. They do not move in the dream. They have already moved. They are watching. When the visitor wakes in the dream, within the dream, not from it, and looks up through the canopy has closed. There is no sky. The cave systems of the southern Okinawa battlefield, particularly those near Itomen and the Mabuni Hill area, where the final months of the 1945 Battle of Okinawa were fought, contain visitor accommodation at the perimeter of the heritage sites. Visitors to this accommodation, who sleep within proximity of the cave systems used as military shelters during the battle, report a consistent first-night dream. In the dream, the visitor is inside a cave. The cave is full of people who do not speak. The people are not hostile. They are simply present, seated, or standing in the specific stillness that the dream consistently produces. In every account, the cave is not dark. There's a light source that none of the visitors have been able to describe. Not a torch, not a fire, not daylight. The cave is lit by something the dreamers cannot identify. The people in the cave wait. In a specific narrow street in the Nishiki area of central Kyoto, a ryokan that has operated continuously for over 300 years produces a first-night dream that its guests have described across centuries of accounts held in the proprietor's records. In the dream, the guest is in the same room they are sleeping in. The room is their room. Everything is as it should be. But the door to the corridor is open, and in the corridor someone is walking. Not toward the room, not away from it, but past it, in both directions simultaneously. The walking continues. The guest in the dream cannot close the door. The person in the corridor does not stop. At the moment when the guest in the dream turns away from the door, they wake. The proprietor's records reference the dream. The earliest entry is from 1687. Mount Koya's Okunoin, the vast cemetery that extends for 2 kilometers through ancient cedar forest behind the mausoleum of Kobo Daishi, the founder of Shingon Buddhism, is surrounded by temple accommodation that receives overnight visitors throughout the year. Monks who have conducted night rituals in the cemetery for decades and visitors staying in the shukubo. Temple lodgings consistently report the same first-night dream. In the dream, the visitor is walking the Okunoin path at night. The lanterns along the path are lit. At the end of the path, at the mausoleum itself, the door is open. This is not how the mausoleum is in waking. The door is open, and there is light inside. The visitor reaches the open door and looks in. What is inside the mausoleum in the dream is consistent across every account. Every visitor describes the same interior. None of them will say what they saw there. In the Nakajima district of Hiroshima, the area within the Peace Memorial Park that marks the hypocenter of the atomic bomb detonation, visitor accommodation at the park's perimeter produces a first-night dream that has been documented by researchers studying the memorial site's psychological impact on overnight visitors. In the dream, the visitor is in Hiroshima at a specific time of day. The city in the dream is the city as it was before August 6, 1945. Not a reconstruction, but a specific vision of the living city, its buildings intact, its streets occupied. The visitor stands in the Nakajima district. The city is going about its day around them. At 8:15 a.m. in the dream, everything stops. Not an explosion, not a sound. Everything simply stops. The city holds the moment before. Then the visitor wakes. Every account describes waking at exactly 8:15 a.m. local time. In the Noto Peninsula of Ishikawa Prefecture, particularly in the inland villages of the Wajima district that have been slowly depopulating over the past 30 years, a specific abandoned farmhouse that has been converted to occasional overnight accommodation produces a consistent first-night dream. In the dream, the farmhouse is occupied. The family who lived there, whose identity and history the visitor typically does not know before sleeping, is in the house going about the ordinary activities of a farming day. They are aware of the visitor. In every account, the family in the dream looks at the visitor once, acknowledges their presence, and then returns to their activities. The visitor spends the dream as a tolerated guest in the occupied farmhouse. Every visitor who has described the dream to researchers has noted the same final detail. As waking begins, one member of the family stands at the window and watches them leave. The Shimokita Peninsula in Aomori Prefecture, the northernmost point of Honshu, extending into the Tsugaru Strait, is associated in Japanese folk tradition with the boundary between the living and the dead, the direction from which spirits return. Visitors who sleep at the peninsula's northern tip, at the accommodation near Tapi Cape, report a consistent first-night dream. In the dream, the visitor is standing on the cape looking north across the Tsugaru Strait toward Hokkaido. Something is crossing the water toward them, not swimming, not on a boat, crossing the surface of the water directly. The something is never identified. In every account, the visitor in the dream cannot look away and cannot move. The thing crossing the water reaches the shore at the moment of waking. No visitor has reported seeing what arrived. The Togakushi Shrine Complex in Nagano Prefecture, 5 shrines spread across a forested mountain accessed by a cedar-lined path, has accommodation within the forest that produces a consistent first-night dream documented by the shrine's own caretakers across multiple generations. In the dream, the visitor is walking the cedar-lined path to the innermost shrine. The path is lit by the same specific light that visitors describe from the actual Cedar Avenue, dappled, directional, filtering through the ancient trees. At the end of the cedar path, the innermost shrine is visible. In the dream, there is a figure standing in the shrine's torii gate. The figure is not facing the visitor. When the visitor reaches the gate, the figure turns. Every visitor describes waking at this moment. No visitor has described the figure's face. The shrine caretaker's records reference the dream without explanation. The earliest entry is from 1834. Izumo Taisha in Shimane Prefecture is Japan's oldest and arguably most sacred Shinto shrine, the place where, according to Shinto tradition, all 8 million gods of Japan gather every October to arrange marriages and destinies for the coming year. The accommodation near the shrine's inner sanctum produces a first-night dream that has been documented across 400 years of visitor records, in shrine administrative documents, in the personal accounts of priests, and in the contemporary online travel reports of visitors who have never consulted any of these sources. The dream is always the same. The visitor is inside the shrine's inner sanctum, not in the public areas. Inside, there are presences, not gods, not ghosts. Presences. They are making decisions about the visitor. The visitor is aware of this. They cannot hear what is being decided. They can only wait. The decisions are made. The visitor wakes. Whatever was decided has already been decided. And what the visitor finds in the days following, the meetings, the changes, the things that begin, has, in every account gathered across 400 years, corresponded to what the presences were deciding.